Hello, I'm Susan Cousin. This is the office hour for Oregon State University, PDC-PRO, winter 2023. This is call number 4, and the next lesson due is assignment 4 on March 6th. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, you can hear me, I can hear you. Howard? Oh.
Doing good. We got storms that are just keeping me inside.
Yeah.
I got stuff to do.
Yeah. Did you guys get hammered pretty hard? A lot of rain?
We're on the top of a hill, so we get a lot of wind.
Yeah.
Luckily, this storm has been mild compared to the others as far as precipitation values, like per day.
Okay.
The last few storms have been dropping like an inch or more than an inch in a day in some of these occasions, and it's just, way too much.
It's a lot, yeah.
So this is much more mild, it seems. You dropped a string. No snow we had some snow fall, but no accumulation. You dropped a string light right in the middle of your camera.
I did, I know. Yeah, I moved my office and I'm loving it. I can work at night again because it's not in anybody's bedroom.
Great.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, I'm still working on the lighting a little bit. Oh, good morning, Mark.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Good. I learned a lot about the property this last week. We had some pretty heavy snow.
Oh yeah.
It looked like a inch, half inch or something like that. So it was covered. I've never seen it like that. Even at my house, got more snow than I've ever seen living here for 36 years. So I have to definitely put that into the design plans of
right.
I don't know what kind of how many year storm this was, but
also, like, how do you track those frequencies anymore with the intervals changing so much, right? A 50-year storm happens every, I don't know, season where I'm at.
Yeah. So now just like double it. Like, all right, there'll be 3 inches in 30 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I
the pond is super full, so it's nice.
Yeah. I know somebody down by Lake Hughes, like right down by the border, south of San Diego, 17 inches of snow.
Yeah, I heard there was a blizzard warning for San Diego, first ever blizzard warning.
Oh, for okay. I saw it for San Diego County. I didn't know if it was for this, like the city area.
Yeah, it might have been the county.
Yes, the county. Yeah. Okay. Well, they got it. They got warned and they got it.
Yeah, that's great.
So, okay. Well, how are assignments going and work stuff? And I've got both your projects up if you want to hit anything specific.
I made the mistake of doing some trees on the first one and then not using that for the second one, I guess, to lay it out and dropping them over. Size and scale for things like I wouldn't say wooded areas, but like there's a bunch of trees. I think I have the number of trees approximately estimated, but the type of those trees is varying. A couple different oaks out here, and I'm not sure each one of those and things like that. So that'd be my only question, is if I need to make a separate species and try to identify the locations of those, or if I can just use varying oak mix and identify the variances within.
Yeah, I would I would get it done with that sort of that level of like, this is, these are oaks and this is like an area, not even worrying about individual trees unless there's like one or two that really stand out. And then as you go, you can refine that of like, oh, now I know what a black oak looks like, and I can differentiate it from, a live oak. That once you can start to tell those, like differentiate those species, if you want to go into that level of detail. But really, from like a functional ecology perspective, I mean, it's not an oak. An oak is an oak is an oak. Like there's definitely differences, but for the purposes of the course, I would really move through with like a lower level of resolution and get that down before really worrying about going back and like specifics, and certainly not individual trees in an area. So unless there's something, if there's something that really stands out, then you can always speak to that. But I always tell students to err on the side of getting it done as like with an overview perspective, and then if you have time or you have the inclination and the information and knowledge to go back and fill in details, then you can do that.
So you just draw a bunch of those circles kind of in random and just oak forest.
I mean, I actually went by canopy cover. I mean, I live here, so I've seen most of these trees, and I got an idea of where they are. And we've actually had to remove 2 giant ones that were right next to the house because ants had tunneled through the middle of them. But yeah, so I mean, it looks terrible because it's so accurate, right? I spent the time putting the trees where like approximately where the trunk is, right, so that I could see those things. But it's detail probably level only for me, and probably maybe even overkill for a regular client. Like if it was an offsite client or someone else, I don't know if they'd want individual trunk locations on anything 1 acre.
It is
2
actually
acres.
it is useful to have individual. No, it isn't useful to have individual trees, and I can see what you did here. The other thing is that you can use different graphics. Like use a graphic where it's just a circle with a point in the middle showing the trunk.
Because there's no real variance in those tree. I mean, from the legend, they're all the same plant type on the map, so the one is irrelevant, basically, right? It's just clutter.
Yeah, deciduous oak tree. Yeah, and an olive tree. Yeah, so I would just pick something that's got less. Yeah, just even like just a simple circle with a point in the middle. And you could make that graphic with PowerPoint.
I'm sure there are some on the slides also that I could choose from. My base map has basically this detail already on it, with the exception of 1 hedgerow, I think. So it's kind of already laid out with the different types. This was just kind of a repeating, adding the microclimate, shapes over the top.
Sure. The other thing you can do is because that shade is going to be more or less contiguous in most of that, you can draw an area around it, and then when because where the trunks are, you can just drop a point there. But yeah, just to like reduce some of the visual clutter.
Well, I was also using like inside the shape of the circle for the tree, it's shade cover, so it is a microclimate underneath that tree. So it's indicated by the clutter. So it was hard for me to kind of separate those things, but
sure. Just a second, I'm gonna have to turn these off. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
I can't.
I don't think she can hear us.
Technology.
My Bluetooth is off.
We probably need to check the waiting room too. I would suggest that there are people.
That's a possibility.
The WhatsApp doesn't ask for access yet, so I assume someone's going to say anyone meeting.
Speakers, come on. Hello.
Bradley, do you have
there we go.
orchard going now? Do you have a wine orchard, or is that a plant?
Right now there's only olive trees. So I think I got a dozen or 14. Most of those are fruit bearing. But no, my plan is to get a few bare root trees and go along the inside fence line where the vineyard is and continue down where the olive tree line goes, for the sun exposure and I don't want them to cast shade onto the vineyard really, but most of the trees I get will be small and they'll be, kept pretty reasonable in size. I don't think they'll be casting too much shade, but yeah, lots of plants.
Do you want me to bring yours up so Mark can see what you're talking about?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah, when I first got to the property, I had a small, the section in the contour lines kind of looks like a triangle underneath the vineyard, no real trees in there. And I had planned 86 trees on a 20-foot spacing. And I was trying to figure out how to coordinate the bloom by color and season and all of this. And so I bought 0 trees and I did nothing, right? I did nothing but conceptualize this idea and then think about, I can't do any of this until irrigation's done. And then I didn't finish that. So no, I got a ton of ideas for trees. I think we're pretty safe as far as frost. My last house was really too short of a growing season, hail and frost. There was no reason I was going to buy trees to put in to watch them die every year. But here I would love to, but yeah, figuring out where to orient them and for zone access and for equipment access, I can't really harvest equipment. I can't run heavy equipment down most of this slope safely. So I wouldn't put a real yielding crop, something you could walk down and bring a handful back at a time, or maybe a side by side if the road's cut or adjusted in some ways. But that's my main spot for the orchard.
On that steep slope, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the only thing I can think of that would be real, I guess, manageable as far as doing anything. I wouldn't be able to do row crops, or I guess I would be able to do all sorts of things. It's just a level of labor in order to do them. So trees are ornamental as well as functional food and atmosphere and shade, and then we can grow things underneath them as we increase our access to those. Once we move it to a new zone and access it more, then we have a chance of doing it. But I never walked down there except for last week to fix a fence.
Yeah.
And when I walk back, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I never come down here. Because it's
And is that so that slope is south facing?
Yeah. So the house is actually like the ridge line. I have a north facing slope with all those oaks and the shade, and we have a south facing slope. There were cattle on that previously. So, the compaction is really tough, and I guess there's a ton of forage growing now because it's been a couple of seasons. Last year we did graze 7 steer intensively for a couple of weeks to knock down the level of grass. And this year I'm meeting today actually with someone about those highland cattle, but I did want to talk to you more about that because it's implied that it's a mismatch for the climate, but I'm trying to find some real information, because I find farms here in Fresno and Northern California, Napa, and all these areas that look like they're boasting having them in this climate and that they adapt well or things like that. But if it's an unethical, animal choice, this particular farmer's got a big group of these cows and had it for 30 years. And he's 2 miles away from here, 3 miles away from here as a crow flies. So
yeah, it's all, I would just always look at what the animals are doing. If they're thriving, they're keeping weight on, they're not, stressed in the heat, then they're adapting. Then that's fine. And for sure, if you've got someone that has that level of knowledge and experience with working with them, always go with that.
Yeah.
Especially within your area. Was that a comment that I made?
Yeah, you had mentioned why highland cattle for the climate in the region, and mostly for me.
Yeah,
management size.
Because I see people with huskies, Malamutes down here, and it's Southern California, what are you doing? But I was really curious about it because they do come from quite a different different climate. But if
The
you've
main
got
appeal
some,
is size, actually, right? I can manage a socially happy
Yeah.
herd because I only have like 2 acres, 2.5
Yeah.
acres. So I didn't want to, right? Less animals to the point of stress is a problem. I looked at the other farm, like I had one male and one female of an animal. It's like, oh, you have to separate them. Like you need multiple of each type of animal depending on your plan. So having a small social herd.
Yeah, and you don't get herd behavior until you have a herd, right? Like you can't do the things with like, adaptive management and, the holistic grazing and everything with 2 animals that you can do with 20. So for sure, if getting smaller animals, certainly they're going to be happier, they're going to be less stressed. So, if the climate issue isn't stressing them, then fly out, or, and you could always run them for a few years and see how it goes, or you could try with different breeds. I mean,
I'm fortunate to have run into this guy with our nonprofit. So he's got a ton of experience. What he's going to do is just graze his animals here while I understand what it looks like and what it feels like and how they go, and best of both worlds for me. So hopefully it works out.
It's a great way to start, for sure. Yeah. There's also, if the cattle don't work out, you can always basically do the same thing with someone with like, with sheep or
sheep.
Especially hair sheep. Hair sheep seem to do really well.
And I'd like to graze them inside the vineyard rows as well in the off season. So sheep are definitely part of the plan, whether a neighbor's herd or having a small herd of ourselves.
Easier to manage, yeah. That's interesting. Could you share either here or somewhere? I'd love to know who that person is that's running Highland, just because I'm curious.
Let me find name of this company. I know they gave me the Trembath Mountain Ranch. Let me get that link here.
Oh, there we go. Miniature Highland cattle. How cool.
And his is like right to the hip height determines whether it's micro, miniature, small or standard. He claims to have like started them. I don't know what that means. Originated them either in the area or with his family have done this. He's got some heritage in the area. I sent the link there to everyone.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, somebody that's been doing it for a long time, that's a really valuable resource. I mean,
right.
I'm just trying to find our specific. There we go. Does anybody else got questions they came with, or?
Nothing on my side.
Okay.
Just plugging away.
Okay.
I guess I had a kind of question on with my kind of bare land. The microclimates aren't. There's some hills I can do in the pond area, but I'm not sure how crazy the how in depth I get when there's no trees, it's just land. So like,
you don't have
mostly just one besides the hill.
Yeah, I mean, use what you've got. If you've got any kind of a like a back slope. Let me pull yours up. Stop share.
And then the zones, do I just kind of project that into the future? Because obviously, I don't have there's not even a zone at this moment.
Yeah, you could do a little projection there, like some ideas. I mean, you've got a driveway coming in, so that yours is going to be super basic.
I have a general idea of what I'd like it to be, and I'm sure that'll change as we go through the course. But should I just kind of project that out and then?
Yeah, and you've got a building site.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Which I might actually build earlier, not on the building site, to get there earlier. Might do like a barn dominium type situation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I would go with what you've got. Certainly, like, relatively speaking, yeah, I mean, certainly, that driveway, the circle is going to be something like zone 1. If you show up there, that's going to be what you're going to see the most. And you're what, 10 acres? Yeah. So, I mean, play with it. The thing with zones is it's so subjective. It's a useful exercise in thinking about okay, like how you can lay things out so that you're managing stuff and not having to move materials in and out of an area that you don't actually frequent very often, for instance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's just no hard and fast rule. So you can play with a couple of different options and that's fine. So
That's good.
yeah, this is a nice assignment in that respect, in that yeah, you've got a lot of leeway to kind of go with what, just to play with it. Like there's no right or wrong answers to it. So morning, Victoria.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good.
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 Dry.
Good. Yeah, I know. Same here. I know. I've got the double doozy of being soggy and getting over a cold. So I'm going to save you all from my cold face this morning.
I also had a general question on, I found a resource like a mile and a half away that's recycled water, and it's free. They give me a 275-gallon tub for my truck. I can just go pick it up. I don't know what everyone's thoughts are on recycled water. Like it's city wastewater that they, I took a course on it and everything. It's supposed to be safe for vegetables and everything, but I don't know if you have any insight on it.
Yeah, I mean, people use it for sure. I would get it independently tested. Even if you do like once every 6 months or once a season or something, just periodically get your own testing done on it. And then, maybe if you've done that for a year or two and you don't see any red flags, and definitely I would do a water test before putting it onto vegetables or anything that you're going to be, obviously, but fruit trees and stuff and vegetation areas, livestock areas. If you've got it, use it.
Yeah, I think the only consideration is obviously the externalities of bringing it onto the site, right?
Yeah.
So ideally, it would be there, so you don't have to truck it in. But I mean, I would certainly use it if it was close by to me.
Yeah, that kind of my first plan was just when I put like leguminous trees like prosopis for just feed those, and then maybe the food I eat, like Susan said, get it tested, but maybe just take a risk on some of the food, but all the, if I do birch and pine in the back, just water what I can with it. Be a little more.
Yeah, and I would.
Things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would always put it on if you need to, or if you have the choice, put it on something like, just an area that you're trying to establish, or like more like a woodland area or something, and use water that more of the history on for your, for things you're eating and stuff. The big thing you'd want to be careful for is any level, especially lead, but any levels of heavy metals, because those will accumulate and there's no way to get those out besides basically like a phytoremediation or microremediation, where you're actually pulling it back up and taking that material off. So you definitely don't want to get started with that. But I would think that do they provide any like testing results?
Yeah, I'll have to ask that. We did just like you have to take a 45-minute course to use it, and it's basically just says drink it over and over.
How often can you get it?
It's as much as you want, and it's completely free. You can come back. You can bring a big water truck there, so it's like I said, it's like a mile away or a mile and a half. So when I found that out, I was like, oh, that's pretty perfect.
I'd build a stand for it the same height as your truck bed. So when you get there, you just pull it directly out, and then it gravity feeds from there, and you could run however far, and you could just from a different node, put the next one on there. and it'd make that part really easy, because doing things one at a time is a really good idea, but it's not sustainable. Or I have found doing things like that, having one catchment or one thing that you have to continually move back and forth, for me, the efficiency of losing all of that time and not having a second one to drop, or when I'm already driving there with an empty, those types of things for me.
Yeah, I had randomly bought 3, I forget what they're called, IBFs or something, the 275 gallon in the cage thing. So I bought like a couple of those that were just soy sauce containers, and then they gave me a free one. So I was going to kind of drive to one and kind of like unload the 275 into the storage and have that, and then like have 3 of those high on my property, and then just kind of gravity feed, like you said. But they said not to store it either, because it just calcify. So they said like if you get it, use it same day if you can.
But you could just open up a valve and let it come out at the rate that you want, and it goes throughout the property, so you're always draining. But take an empty bin home every time you leave, so that when you drive in, you fill it up on the way, so you don't go in, then back, and then home. Those types of things allow you to kind of maximize your route efficiency, or the systems that you use.
That's smart.
Mark, does your city do anything with bio waste as well, or just the recycled water?
So we don't even have, the city doesn't even have like a dump or anything. They use the city I live in, Redlands. So I've actually talked to a couple tree trimmers and landscapers that dump on my property, because there is no place to dump there in Utaipa specifically. So
That's nice.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of biomass spread, but
Sure. Sorry, I should have clarified. I meant more like your sanitation department. Does it do anything with bio waste composting, like
solid?
Yeah, they don't, because the city doesn't even have, like, it's a private company that does our waste management too. It's a kind of a smaller town.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Redlands does, but then that's driving from the dump. Like, you can go get free compost from the dump, but that's a bit more of a journey, and the compost isn't very good. It's just like palm fronds and city waste. But I've used it before, and if you let it sit for like a year, it's decent. But who knows what's in it is the issue.
Sure.
Yeah. Plastic.
Mark, do you know what you're doing for the recreation area? Like, what are your plans for that zone?
So that was gonna originally just be like, I was gonna put a bocce ball and just fun stuff, to where when I go up there, drive up there and work on the property, my wife and kids could like hang out. So it's just gonna be like, just like outdoor games. But now I think we're actually gonna put in a 30 by 80 shop, and then put in a ADU, like a 1,200 square foot house, so that we could live there and then build later. So we just want to get up there as fast as we can. So can maybe do that within the year if everything works out. But that's kind of the plan right now. We're just looking into all the costs and the details and stuff. So the shop might go right in that recreation area. When I was up there the other day, it looked like actually the best place to put it, right in the central hub of it. And that's where, if we get a tractor and stuff, it'll be in there. So might work out.
Are you planning on doing any kind of like natural building approaches, or just like conventional?
I did like in our textbook, the solar passive design, that kind of stuff, where the eaves, I don't know construction very well, but the eaves kind of hang out at a certain level, so you get the winter sun, but it blocks the summer sun. So something like that, like a passive solar. And then the way it's orientated, or the orientation of the building, I want to get right. And then probably do like that, a couple big deciduous trees, so that, because the summer can get 100 degrees, so block the summer sun, but then the deciduous nature makes the winter sun come in. So like that, and then solar. But I don't know like I haven't looked into barn dominiums that much. It's kind of a newer thing, so
Mhm.
seeing what pros and cons of that are energy wise and everything.
Yeah, that's an interesting point with I wonder, I haven't seen that kind of a design with like merged with a passive solar.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
interesting.
sure how it worked. Maybe just
Yeah.
more greenery or vines kind of going up the building to capture some.
Yeah, and the thing with passive solar is really like the orientation of the whole building in relation to the sun patterns and like thermal mass for storing heat and ways of like dispersing that heat. So whether like earth tubes or yeah, I mean, so less so like the vegetation around it, but really focusing on like the orientation, window size, and then something capturing and storing heat, whether that's like a thermal mass on the floor or like a thermal wall. That's what I was curious. So.
Yeah, like we're not sure. Maybe we'll do a little more designing on the house,
Yeah.
and this will just kind of be the shop, and eventually maybe my parents if they want to move up or something like that.
Do you have any interest in doing like COB or monolithic Adobe?
I've
Or?
I've just read that in the textbook, but I've never kind of thought about it, so I'm not sure what's legal in our.
Well, the policies have really improved in the last few years, and I don't know exactly what they're going to be like for you in your county. But I would definitely look into it because we do have some really good natural builders in California. And then the great thing about them is one, you can use a lot of like your own material, so clay that's right on site. And you can wind up with like a very fireproof structure. So then you've got a lot less threat from wildfire. Some of the things they're getting worked out are like the insurance pieces and and how to protect that and the actual like building permits and everything. But I can try and find some information on it for you. Sasha Robin at Quail Springs is a good one. She just had a baby like 2 weeks ago, so she's probably not very contactable. And John Orcutt. So they're Quail Springs Permacultures in Cuyama Valley. And they've actually done what is it? Oh, their business is Earth and Shelter. I cannot type right now. So I think they're on Instagram. But they've actually gone through like research level fire testing and load bearing testing to get this put into policy in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. So it's there's a lot of movement in this area right now. I'm just trying to find them.
Quailsprings.org I found.
Yeah. I'm a little bit biased because I'm board chair, but we've been involved with them for a long time. But they do have there's a research professor at, I think he's at UC Davis, and he's doing some really interesting work in COB. But there we go, Sasha. And they're really like, the cool thing is like they're really beautiful structures and really like you can get really creative with them. And they're really fun for like family building, so getting people more involved. And trying to find the other guy. Oh, where is he? Okay, I'm gonna have to.
Where's Quail Springs?
They're Cuyama Valley, so they're out on Highway 33. So if you were to take the 166 that runs like between Paso Robles and the coast, and then you go south. So they're kind of like between, if geographically they're kind of like between Ojai and Paso Robles area,
Oh, yes.
Lockwood Valley area. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you go inland from Santa Maria, and then kind of turn south. Trying to see, kind of between like Santa Maria and Bakersfield, but south of that. So, Michelle Barbado. Yeah, he's at UC Davis. This guy's doing some really cool stuff too. I'm still showing, so I'll read my email.
I think there is a super old adobe building in Yucaipa, like one of the earliest or oldest buildings in California still standing or something like that.
Oh yeah, okay.
Historical monument somewhere.
Can
be done for sure.
Yeah. They're amazing buildings, and they're more creative, but you can just use such safer materials. You're not getting into like basically building a house out of matchsticks. How far are you from Redlands?
A couple miles, but
so you're right. Okay. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, so Riverside County. Okay. No, are you San Bernardino?
Yeah, we're in San Bernardino County.
Oh, you are. Okay. I don't know anybody like right in your area. Yeah, but if I find anything, I'll let you know.
Great.
Susan, how do those projects usually cost out? Like, how do they compare to kind of your typical general construction costs?
Well, you see a lot of, I see a lot of stories of like, I built this house for $2,000. Generally, it seems to be about par. In my experience, it seems to be somewhere between par and cheaper. Now, depending how fancy you go, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah, it's like, it depends, like, if you have to bring in material, if you have to bring in more people, it's also a lot more time. It can be a lot more time intensive and like, manual labor intensive. So if you have to pay for that, then that changes your cost a lot. On the other hand, you've got a lot more potential to be involved in it yourself, or to do kind of like more like a barn raising, and getting like community people involved. You can do like workshops on it. So that's a big factor in it, is like, how much do you have to pay for people to come in and be involved in it? On the other hand, you can be a lot more involved and put in a lot more of that sweat equity.
That's neat. Yeah.
And certainly if you have the capacity to start saving things like, glazed windows, doors, all the, counter, all of the, if you can do a lot more salvage, then you cut your costs back a lot, and it's a lot easier to incorporate those materials because you're not confined to like rectangular walls and everything being like super plumb straight. So I think that's probably the biggest area where people have a lot of savings, is just in the fact that it's so much easier to incorporate materials that you can get from different sources.
Yeah.
There are a lot of opportunities too, depending on the land type that you're working with. Like, we've got a group that'll come in and build us a pizza oven and teach a class on how to do it, right? If we can find the number of people to come. So if you if you can coordinate with groups of folks that are like-minded, an event or a class or a workshop, that person might come and give their expertise for free and is also contribute to your site or a community site. So a lot of the technical and labor force can be group-minded and really offset if it's a project that benefits everyone.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely spot on. I think the one thing that I've seen that I'd want to caution people about doing that is like start off with like a garden shed or make sure who you have running the workshop has done like house projects that you are really happy and impressed with, because I've seen a lot of workshop projects that like, not that, I wouldn't want on my site, but they're learning, people are there for learning, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily merge with like how you want your house to turn out. Like, just to put it, I don't know, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, but make sure that if you're going to do that and it's a place that you're actually going to be living in, and this is like, this is your residence, especially when you've got a family, make sure that the people you're bringing in to run that workshop are on top of it in terms of making sure you get the quality out of it that you're looking for, because you have to live in it at the end of the day. So, I mean, if you're building a goat shed or they're practicing on like a garden space or a cob oven, it's great. And it's an amazing way to like build community, and you can find people that then would want to like come and work on your actual house. But just to keep that in mind, I've seen that go sideways. But it's a great way to create community around that building and to get people learning about it. I mean, which is really the important part, right? Like, we need more people with those skills. So
start with the pizza oven, like Bradley said. Work your way up.
Yeah. And then you can feed the people while they're building your house, right? So yeah, it's always a good idea to start small. Quail Springs actually runs a natural building, has run. I don't know if they're going to do it again because Sasha's taking some time away, but we were running a natural building online course. And I think we're just finishing up the current cohort.
Yeah, I could definitely see building something like this as a smaller house. I don't think the wife would go for a full house with it. But it would be cool to have a house on property like this, even like an Airbnb or something.
Yeah.
Or yes, in-law quarters or something.
If it is going to be used though for people all the time, consider the thermal aspect up front though, because I have a suite that I have to consider the heating and cooling for because it wasn't originally, I don't know, it wasn't going to be long-term, or that wasn't what it was going to be. So if you do think that people will be in there all the time, make it a comfortable, plan it to be a comfortable setting from the outset, because a lot of those things can be a real pain to go back and try to fix.
Yeah. And if you want to go further down this road, I just dropped another link in the chat. Art Ludwig, it's not Ludwig. Anyway, the link is there. He is like a real leader in Greywater, but he's also an architect. And he's built some really, built and designed some really stunning, like not obviously like hand built natural design sort of thing. Like, Ianto Evans is another one. Ianto Evans is like one of the original trainers in this. I want to see shelter safety.
We could roll right into this class, this course.
Oh, we could, yeah.
Finish this one, roll right in.
Yeah. Yeah, you got lots of cool options. I'm jealous. I want to be building my own house.
Yeah, it's like awesome, but then it's terrifying at the same. There's so much.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So many expenses with like just the city and the county and.
Yeah. And then that feeling of like, well, if you're gonna do it right the first time. But it's like it's a learning process too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Cool. Eitan, did you have any questions? I suppose you would jump in if you did.
No, I'm okay, actually. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Victoria, how are things going besides the cold?
No, they're going fine. This week, I think some of this is kind of part of how I've done planning before, so it's a little bit of a refresher, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
And it's nice to get to spend some time with plants this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, as always, just getting used to merging my design style with kind of more of a with the Google Slides, and making the tech all work out well, and look cohesive. So that's what I'm spending most of my time with, is drawing finicky lines.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. But so far, no major confusions, or what do I do here? Blockades.
Okay. What software are you used to working in? Because you are
hand drawing. I'm all hand drawing.
You are all hand drawn. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So which is part of what I wanted to learn in this course, is getting away from that a little bit, and and trying to find some methods that are maybe a little bit more eventually time efficient. And so this is good practice for me.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want to bang my head against the wall, but it's good practice.
Sometimes, yeah. Did you guys get yet, or did you find there's it's a big spreadsheet of like digital design resources, and Heather Jo Flores originally put it together, and I think Javin shared it with permission with like an updated.
I don't think I have seen that.
I think so.
Okay. I'm always kind of reluctant to share it too early in the game, but now you guys are kind of on a roll. Just because, people could go down a rabbit hole of like, oh, I tried this tech instead of Google Slides, and and then it just becomes, they're learning the core, they're learning the course and putting it together in Google Slides, and trying to like add on all these additional software at the same time that they're trying. And Eitan, I know it looks like it's worked out really well for you with Inkscape. But I think you seem to have a particular aptitude for it, and I can't find it. I'm gonna find it for you guys. Yeah, she put together a really comprehensive list. Yeah, no. Okay, I'm gonna have to find it for you. So,
I think as you look for it, this is sort of in line with what you were thinking about, maybe, Victoria, is how to create efficiencies in design. And I think obviously there's sort of a learning curve in terms of the technology, but then once you have a good sense of it, and you have plant image libraries and images of, I think they're just like GIF images or whatever program is compatible with a variety of images, then you're like, oh, mulberry tree. Do I have to okay? How do I hand draw this mulberry tree, right?
Right.
So from this angle, that angle is just like, boom, I have a whole cache of images, and I'm just like, whoop, bloop, bloop, just populate. Especially if it's a larger site where you're like, okay, 17 mulberry trees. Okay, here we go.
Right. Sure.
And also it's like, oh, seasonally, right? Like the client wants to see like, okay, what does this look like midwinter, right? Or summer. You're like, okay, so you have, you can in a snap sort of go from winter to summer. If you can somehow say, you can link up these two images, and you can sort of mask it in some way.
Yes.
So it could be really functional if if that's something that you want to keep doing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it in that way. I'm still sort of in the learning process of Inkscape, and I haven't like started any kind of libraries yet, but it's something that I'd like to do at some point, I think.
Absolutely. And I think some of it is like, you know, the devil, and like what you're kind of used to doing. And so the transition takes some time. I think it will eventually be very, very worth it. But then also, you know, I am used to my projects being hand drafted, and so I also want to maintain some of that character.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, you know, finding that style will.
It could be tedious, but drawing a legend for yourself, right? Hand drawing basic tree shapes and those shapes and taking a picture of it, putting it in something as simple as like Microsoft Paint, you could cut out that image and make your own hand drawn, decals that you can drop
still
into.
Have that bank. That's a really good idea. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Good idea.
Yeah, building
Maybe
and
sell
thinking
that
about
bank
that
on
right
Etsy.
from the beginning. Sorry.
I was just gonna say you could maybe sell that on Etsy. A lot of people just sell like for like $2.99 little stuff like that, vector graphics.
Sure.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Etsy, and there's a number of like digital design, I don't even know what you call them, but like online shops where, you can sell, like sets of trees or sets of different grasses, sets of, herbs and stuff that people use in design. And it's, it's really choosing an aesthetic. So, I mean, I've bought sets of plants and I'm just like, oh, I just really like this aesthetic that they used, or like, the colors aren't really strong. So like Bradley, in your case, where you've got, these icons for the oak trees that are like quite dense, and choosing, finding something that worked instead for, having like just something more open and basic. But building that design library right from the beginning does take it starts to save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, organization, the things we learn. Yeah. How are you finding Inkscape, Eitan? Is it like, are you finding it pretty easy to pick up, or?
There's obviously a lot more functionality to all of it than I'm utilizing.
Oh, that's promising. Okay.
So it's much more robust than how I'm using it. But I think that's part of the learning process, right? You learn how to do one thing a particular way, and then you can sort of move on from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it does have some great functionality, and I'm muscling my way like through it sometimes. The difference between a month ago and today, like starting another segment, I'm much faster and sort of understand where I'm going and not making dumb mistakes. So,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really glad, honestly, that Google Slides was not working for me, because otherwise I would have stuck with it,
Yeah.
And I think Google Slides is great, but it's also, there's not that much functionality, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's good for organizing material that, especially for graphic material that's been created somewhere else, but
for sure.
Yeah. So. Okay.
Susan, did you drop the link to that design?
No, I've been trying to find it.
Okay.
I think I want to do some searching like once we close out the call, rather than sitting here like, on my browser while you,
Yeah.
Especially for people watching the replays, that's like incredibly boring. It's like watching somebody search in their browser, but I can find it. I don't know why it wasn't coming up in my email, but I might just drop Javin a message if I'm meaning to reach out to him.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I know he's got it like saved super handy, so yeah.
Susan, you said you use Affinity
Designer, yeah. And I don't, to be honest, I don't right now do much design. on a regular basis. Like I'll help out with like support people with projects, and I've had a couple of clients that are designers, and so we've collaborated a little bit. But right now I'm mostly just doing grant reports. So then we're shipping a lot of our site mapping out to people that are actually using QGIS, and I think he's working in Illustrator for the maps on, and then he's doing it on a daily basis, and that's his job. And my job has been more like putting the information together, getting everything organized, making sure we've got the budgets together. And so the mapping is kind of fallen on somebody else. So I haven't actually been an Affinity designer in a couple of months actually. But I did really like it. I found it pretty intuitive. I went through some tutorials, which were really helpful, but I did really like it. And the price was right. I think it was under $50 to get it was a lifetime subscription. So yeah. And it looks, I don't know, I know a lot of people, like, you can get a long way with free tools. And at a certain point, you realize like, oh, this is like half an hour's worth of work, and it's going to make the quality of my work better, and it's going to help me like, organize things differently, things that you can't do in a free program. So that's kind of, for me, that's always the tripwire of like when I actually go and like pay for a software. I'm like, okay, this is at a point where it's like, it's less than a full hour's worth of work, where it's like, I've got this project, it's going to be a day, it's going to be paid for by the end of this project. So it makes sense for me to invest in it right now. Like I tried not to do a lot of like investing before the fact and like kind of crossing my fingers and hope I get the work to pay for it. And that's worked out pretty well, because you can get a long ways with free tools. And I know even know designers that are honestly still designing in like PowerPoint. So, and for really basic, farm design, for people that they don't want a fancy design to hang on their wall. They don't want to like go through a client report and everything. They just want to like, where do we put the water? Where do we put the cow? Really basic stuff. That works fine. I'd rather clients pay for good ideas than pay for a beautiful design. But some, there's always going to be people that aren't convinced that the ideas are good unless they see the design looks really nice, right? So
production value has value.
Pardon me?
Production value has value.
Yes. Yeah. So
do we in this course do we get into like the economics of being a designer and kind of any of that stuff? Or
no, there's not a lot. We've talked about that on calls, but no, it's largely a more in-depth design process. So more like watershed mapping, more the regional challenges, deeper water flow analysis. I'm trying to remember what else. There's a few pieces. There's obviously quite a few pieces in the PDC-PRO that are not in the regular PDC, but that has not been a part. Let me see. I just know.
Would there be a good week for us as a group to maybe talk about that in this space, or?
Yeah, probably the last week, actually, if that's not too late. There's also, I'll start putting some materials together, because it might be worth talking about kind of a little bit along the way. But certainly maybe one of the later calls, I can make that more explicit, that we can sit and talk about like, the business of design.
That would be awesome. I would really get something out of that.
Okay. And I hate to say like, oh, go buy another course, but Eric Olson's I'm in the program. He runs Permaculture Skills Center in Petaluma. And come on, what's the name of his program? Maybe they're not running it anymore. They changed a lot with COVID, because they basically had to close down their skills center. But he's got a dedicated program on teaching basically how to run an eco landscaping business.
Have you guys looked at there's a group of videos that were put together on client interface, and that was a good maybe segue into talking about this, this conversation. But a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Susan, did you see that? Andrew had one, and then a few other instructors also put together how they interface with clients. There was
the supplemental material, right? Or like further learning. Yeah.
No, I did not. Was that, are you saying that was last week's or last assignment?
No,
or?
It was the client
Do you
interview.
remember that? It was early on.
Oh,
It
okay.
was, I think it was like right around the time that we were doing the client interviews, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Like week, maybe assignment 2 or
yeah.
something.
Yeah. Victoria, did you look at those? I found those interesting.
Yeah, no, I do. I do think that that's a really nice way to, it's just always nice to kind of, be a shadow on the wall for other people's processes,
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can bring that up. Oh, I can't find that. If you, Eric, Eitan, if you find that, can you send me, it's embarrassing, but send me a link to it, because I did not see an announcement for that. It's in, actually might be in resources. Okay, actually, I'll find it. I'll find it, because I can reach out to Dow if I don't. So, yeah, okay. But yeah, it is nice to talk through specifics. Here it is, Eco Landscape Mastery School. It looks like they're still running it. And it's very much on like building a portfolio, consulting strategy, like what your professional process is. There's an irrigation module. So some of it's going to cross over with PDCs, but I think everybody that I've seen in there already has a PDC of some, in some way. And everyone is different, but this has been really detailed in terms of like, with project management and actual like client work. So I will drop that link in. And it's kind of, it falls into that like ongoing, always learning, professional development.
Yeah, I posted a link just now. I just saw it on YouTube, like an hour and a half, creating a 7-figure permaculture landscaping business.
Yeah.
That's great.
That doesn't sound like clickbait.
No. But he's
teaching other people how to make money.
Yeah. But he has actually done it, to be fair, and he's a really nice guy. I have a lot of respect for Eric and his work. So I think that's the difference between like real clickbait is just like, oh yeah, okay, you read a bunch of stuff and now you're going to resell it. But okay, I'm going to sign off because I've got a pile of marking to get done. Which, speaking of which, last week I said, oh, video feedback is going to be up on Wednesday, and it's not. So I'm recording it today, and it'll be up for the last assignment. So.
Oh, I had one quick question about the when you talk about other people's assignments, there's like a quiz that you need to take. That's true or false. Did you do it? Has anybody seen that thing? Like, in order to get graded, you take
the peer review.
The peer review, yeah.
The peer review, yeah.
Each lesson, each assignment has one of those, and you just say yes on it to each one.
The honor system.
I was just late, like 3 weeks, clicking the yes button, but I did do the comments, so I wasn't sure if that is.
Yeah, you can always go back and just go ahead and update that. So. Okay. All right. Well, if we're all good, we're all good.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan.
All right. Thanks everyone for showing up.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.